Frank told him, though everyone thought I was saving you. Spring brought invite to veterans meetup. Their shadow wore the old tag again. Folks approached, recognized, slapped backs. Some cried. One guy said, "This dog pulled me from a basement under fire. Thought he was long gone." Frank smiled. He's alive and remembers us all. After, Thompson pitched starting rehab program for retired military dogs. "You could be the face," he said. "You, Shadow." Frank first said no, but then saw the point. Not just for him, for all who believe past can be rewritten. They started small shelter visits. Shadow sat calm, while kids petted his ear. Every move careful tenderness, and someone always whispered, "He's not scary, he's kind." So the most hated dog's name became a symbol of second chances. But one day it nearly ended. Late evening, heading home from meetup, Frank spotted smoke. His house on fire. Neighbors called firefighters, but inside amid flames was someone. Old Lady May, lone neighbor. No hesitation. Frank rushed the door, but flames pushed back. Then Shadow leaped through fire. Through smoke Frank yelled, prayed, till he heard coughing. From darkness emerged the dog, soot-black, but alive. Behind him May, leaning on wall, Shadow gripping her coat in teeth, dragging to exit. When firefighters pulled them out, crowd cheered. Frank knelt by dog and cried. "You saved another life," he whispered. "Like back then? Only now no one blames you." Days after fire. Frank's house partly burned, but miraculously stood. Neighbors fixed roof. Local volunteers brought food, clothes, new bed. But real miracle for all was Shadow. Dog lay under vet watch. Burns on paws, mild airway singe, exhaustion. But eyes alive again. Frank visited daily, sat by kennel. Read aloud, same voice, same patience. Every time he stood, Shadow whimpered softly like begging. "Stay a bit, hang in, buddy," Frank finished. "We'll go home again." One day vet got visit from May, the neighbor he saved, tiny, gray-haired with burns on hands. Brought treat bag and said, "He's an angel. I'd be gone without him." Frank smiled.
"No, May."
He just wanted to prove past doesn't decide who you become tomorrow. When Shadow finally came home, town knew his story. Local paper ran article. Dog everyone feared became hero. Reporters came for interviews. Kids wrote thank you letters. One in big kid scrawl, "You're the bravest dog ever. I want to be like you." Frank hung it over fireplace. From then their life changed. He and Shadow started visiting shelters, schools, vet centers. Kids petted dog, heard story, adults teared up, not pity, hope. "See what you did," Frank said, sitting on grass. "Now they love you." Shadow laid head on his lap, exhaled, sound saying, "I just did what I had to." Only sometimes at night Frank noticed dog twitch in sleep. Then he'd quietly place hand on back. "All good. We're home." 6 months passed. At Town Heroes Festival, Frank got medal for courage and valor, but shrugged and hung it on Shadow's collar. "Yours," he said. "You earned it." Crowd cheered. In audience stood Michael Bennett, no uniform, no pride. He approached, tipped hat. "Sorry, you were right. He's no beast, he's a soldier." Frank nodded. "Nobody's born a monster, Michael. Just needs someone to give chance to prove it." Bennett knelt, slowly extended palm. Shadow paused briefly, then stepped forward, touched nose to hand. Crowd held breath, then someone cried. A year passed. House rebuilt, garden bloomed again. Wind carried fresh grass and morning coffee smells. Frank sat on porch, Shadow beside with gray on muzzle, but same alert gaze. Every morning same. Short walk, coffee cup, quiet. Frank no longer feared that quiet. It held life now. Sometimes Lucas came, Bennett's boy. Ran yard, played with Shadow, laughed. Every time Frank watched, heart warmed.
"He's your friend now, right?"
Boy asked once. Frank smiled. "Think he's ours now, for everyone who feared starting over." As sun dipped, Shadow lifted head, stared distant, like waiting. "All good, buddy," Frank whispered, stroking neck. We did what we had to. That evening he again wore the old tag, worn with faint USMC K9. It jingled in wind, reminder even most broken souls can light others. Frank looked at Dog and said, "Remember I said you deserve second chance?" He smiled. Turns out it was mine too. Shadow lifted eyes, sun reflecting. In that moment all simple. Man and dog, two survivors who found each other not by accident. Then they just sat quiet, peaceful, like world finally stopped rushing. Shadow trembled but didn't growl, just stared at his former handler with a mix of fear and memory. When Bennett dragged his son away, Shadow collapsed heavily to the ground. He didn't howl, didn't whine, just breathed unevenly, holding back pain. Frank knelt beside him. "Now I know why you feared men." He ran a hand down his neck. "The one you served beat you." That night, nightmares returned. Afghanistan, sand, explosion, dead buddy, dog, the one Frank couldn't save. And suddenly in the dust, Shadow's weary, pleading eyes. He woke in cold sweat. Shadow sat beside him, still. "We both see the same thing, huh?" he whispered. "Only you stay quiet." Days flowed into routine. Frank started writing reports again, kept a journal noting every detail. Day 37. Shadow approached the neighbor kid without aggression. Day 49, my night screams. He came, placed a paw, calmed me. Day 62. Reacts to doorbell like a command. Think he was an explosives dog. One evening, a car pulled up. Same cop Thompson. "Town council's talking closing the shelter," he said. "Bennett's on the budget committee now. Bet you'll want to speak up." "I'll be there," Frank replied. "And bring Shadow." Marta, the neighbor, overhearing, shook her head. "It'll be loud." "Let it," Frank grinned. Sometimes truth needs saying out loud. A week later, he showed up at the meeting with Shadow at his heel. The dog sat calmly. Eyes gleamed under the lights. People whispered, "That dangerous one, the biter." When his turn came, Frank stood. "I'm not asking for pity," he started. "I'm asking for second chances for those already written off as hopeless." He told Shadow's story, the fear, pain, but also loyalty, the silence where trust is born. This dog was military. Saved lives, then got dumped. All he needed was someone who wouldn't turn away. The room went dead quiet. Even Bennett had no words. Only little Lucas quietly approached and sat beside the dog.
"He's not mean," the boy said.
"He just remembers." After the meeting, life seemed back to normal. Only something shifted. Air felt heavier. Frank noticed an unfamiliar car lingering by his house more often. Night scratches on the fence, once a rock through the window with a note. "Put the beast down before it's too late." He didn't tell police, didn't want more drama, but Shadow knew without words. The dog grew warier, patrolled the yard more, listened to every rustle. That look Frank hoped was gone returned. Fear mixed with readiness to protect. One rainy evening, Frank returned from the store, bag of dog food and bread in hand. In the headlights, a shadow at the gate. Someone tampering with the lock. Man dropped the bag and ran. But before he could yell, Shadow shot from the darkness. Lightning. A muffled growl, then a cry. Then silence. Frank rushed up. A hooded figure on the ground. Shadow held his arm, but didn't bite. Just pinned him. The man jerked, and Frank realized, Michael Bennett. "You lost your mind?" Frank gasped. "I just wanted him back." "He's mine," Bennett yelled. "You don't even know what this dog is." Frank stood unbelieving. "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm not giving him up." Cops arrived in 10 minutes. Thompson heard and came himself. Shadow sat by Frank, eyes locked on Michael. "This guy broke the gate," Thompson said. "We got it all on cam." Bennett stayed silent. Only later by the car. "This dog killed my brother." World crumbled. Later at the station, Bennett spilled it all. Years back in Afghanistan his brother Jason caught fire. Shadow, service dog under his command then, reacted wrong. Spooked by blast, bolted forward. In chaos, blamed for botching the mission. Bennett hated him since. couldn't forgive, he admitted.
Not the dog, myself.
Frank stayed quiet a long time. He ain't guilty. You know it. We were both there. I saw what happened. He exhaled. Human error, not animal. Court fined Bennett for trespass, but story spread fast. People whispered again. Mail to Frank. Some support, some threats. He held on for Shadow. Shadow changed, more confident. When Frank's spirits dropped, Dog sat close, head on knees, like saying, "Hold on, you're my rescuer." He adopted the shelter's most hated dog. No one expected what happened next. He walked into the shelter in a downpour. A middle-aged man with tired eyes and a quiet voice. When the worker asked what kind of dog he wanted, he answered without hesitation. The most hated one. The one nobody wants. Her hand froze over the papers. You sure? He nodded. A minute later, a German shepherd with a cropped ear and empty eyes stood before him. The dog didn't bark, didn't growl, just stared. And in that stare, the man recognized something painfully familiar. His name was Shadow. 3 years in a concrete kennel, surviving 3 failed adoptions, the last owner got 42 stitches. After that, they decided not to show the dog to anyone. But Frank Sullivan insisted. He silently signed all the papers, no questions asked. You know what you're getting into? The shelter girl asked. I do. His voice was raspy, like it carried dust from distant roads. Sometimes the one who deserves a chance is the one who stopped waiting. Shadow didn't move when the kennel door opened. Only his eyes flickered slightly, warm, amber, weary. Frank knelt and slowly extended his palm. I won't force you. All on your terms. The silence lasted an eternity. Then the dog, as if weighing something, stood and cautiously placed a paw on the man's hand. In that moment, even the wind in the shelter hallway stopped. Half an hour later, Frank drove his old pickup down the highway, a German shepherd trembling in the back seat, staring at the fading streetlights. The cab smelled of wet fur, gasoline, and something new, freedom. At the house, Shadow hesitated to get out. Every loud noise made him flinch. Frank didn't rush, set down a bowl of water, nodded. Your spot. Choose it yourself. That night, Shadow hid under the table. He didn't eat, didn't drink, just watched every human move. But morning came, and when Frank pretended to sleep, the bowl was empty. First step taken. The first week was like walking on a powder keg. Shadow lived nearby, but not with him. He ate only at night, drank when Frank left for work, hid at any knock outside. It seemed fear had seeped into his bones. Frank didn't push. He just lived, read books aloud in the living room, brewed coffee on the stove, sometimes deliberately humming something soft so the dog heard a voice. Army service had taught him patience and understanding that trust doesn't come from commands. On the 5th day, he noticed tiny round scars on the dog's side, like cigarette burns. Frank sat on the floor a long time, staring at those marks, and finally whispered, Someone tried to kill what was alive in you, but you survived. That night, Shadow didn't hide for the first time. He lay at the bedroom door, wary but closer than before. Progress, buddy, Frank said, smiling. Small, but real. On the 7th day, a miracle happened. The man woke to a gentle touch. Shadow stood beside him and placed a paw on his hand, just like in the shelter. Hey, pal, Frank whispered, feeling something tighten inside. For real now. Gradually, the house came alive. The dog started going on walks, stopped fearing the open door. Sometimes a loud noise made him freeze, but seeing Frank calm, he'd sit beside him and quietly exhale. One evening, a knock at the door. Local police chief Robert Thompson stood there, tall, lean man with a weary face. Sullivan, he said, eyeing the dog. You know who you're living with? Frank nodded. I know. The one others threw away. This dog bit 3 people. One kid nearly lost an arm. Thompson squinted. Not scared? Frank looked at Shadow, sitting calmly at his heel, alert like a soldier on duty. Scared of silence. Not those who've been through too much. When the cop left, Shadow approached and laid his head on his owner's lap. In that simple gesture was everything: trust, gratitude, promise. Later, cleaning an old collar, Frank found a metal tag, worn with faint letters USMC K9. Military dog tag. The man's heart clenched. "No way," he whispered, "you served." He flipped it over and saw a partially erased name. Lieutenant M. Ben. Name rang a bell. Michael Bennett, the guy he served with years ago, who went into private training after discharge. Frank sat by the window a long time, staring at the dark yard. The dog quietly approached and nuzzled his palm. "We both got too many shadows," he whispered. "But now we're not alone." From then on, Frank had no doubts. Shadow was a former military dog. Everything about him said it. Precision movements, response to commands, alertness to sounds. He listened not with ears, but his whole body. But the question lingered. How did a combat dog end up in a shelter? The answer came unexpectedly. On a walk by the waterfront, Frank heard a kid's voice. "That's the mean dog." He turned. An 8-year-old boy with messy hair and a perpetual grin stood there. "His name's Shadow," Frank replied. "And he's not mean. Just seen too much." "I'm Lucas." "Nice to meet ya," the boy said. "Lucas Bennett." Frank froze. Heart slammed against his ribs. "Bennett. The tag's last name. You know who trained him?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. The kid nodded. "Yeah, my dad, he was in the military. We lived with this dog, but then Dad said he broke, and one day he was just gone." Frank dropped to one knee. His eyes met Shadow's. The dog stood still, but hackles rose when a tall man in uniform appeared nearby. "Lucas." The voice was sharp, commanding. "Step away from that dog." Shadow froze. Muscles tensed, eyes darkened. Frank knew instantly. This was Michael Bennett, his old battle buddy. "Michael," he said quietly, "long time?" Bennett went pale. "What are you doing with that beast?" "He's dangerous. Should have been put down." "He's not dangerous," Frank replied. "He's saving himself." Bennett sneered. "You always were naive, Sullivan. Some dogs don't change, just like people." Frank gripped the leash.